The first to bring you the hottest DJ gear on the planet. You're watching coverage of Winter NAMM 2013. We are agiprodj.com.
Hello everybody, Rick from AGI Pro DJ. We're live at NAMM 2013 in Anaheim, California. We're excited for this presentation. This is the new Ableton Push in use with an APC40. We're excited to watch this demonstration. Again, AGI Pro DJ is an authorized Akai dealer, an authorized Ableton dealer. Call us with questions, email us, chat with us, and enjoy the performance.
Introduce you, Dennis from Ableton. Let's give it up for him, please.
How's everybody doing? Am I on here?
You are.
Excellent. So my name is Dennis DeSantis. I'm the head of documentation for Ableton. We make a program called Ableton Live, which is music production and performance software. We also now make a piece of hardware called Ableton Push, which is our new instrument. So what I'm going to be showing you today is a combination of making new music with Ableton Push and working with the Akai APC40, which we developed with our partners at Akai, which is a performance controller. So if you look at these two pieces of hardware side by side, you can see that there are some similarities. They're both sort of, the centerpiece of both of these is this kind of button grid. Are they both on the screen? Oh, that was very awesome. But they have quite different ways of interacting with the software. So the APC40 was designed as a place to launch clips. So you have patterns of material that you've made already, and you can start and stop them and mix and crossfade and adjust device parameters. But the idea here is that you're working with material that you already have, say on stage or organizing things in the studio. The idea with Ableton Push is that you start from scratch. You don't have any music yet, and you want to play an instrument to create new musical ideas out of nothing. So the idea behind Push is that the pad grid dynamically updates itself depending on what kind of instrument you're playing. So if you're playing drums, the pads are configured in a certain way. If you're playing a pitched instrument like a piano, the pads reconfigure themselves automatically. And the way this is all, you don't have to do it, you just switch to a different track that plays a different sound. So in drums mode, these 16 pads here are the kind of classic real-time playing workflow made famous by folks like Akai. These 16 pads are for setting the length of the loop that you're currently working on. Hello there, sir. Nice to see you. And these 4 rows of buttons here are a step sequencer. So you can do real-time playing and step sequencing at the same time on the same grid. And this is possible just because we have so many pads. So let me show you a little bit about how that works. The resolution of the step sequencer is determined by this column of buttons here, anywhere from quarter notes up to 32nd note triplets. So I leave it at 16th notes, so I have 32 16th notes for a total of 2 bars. And the last pad that you play in the real-time area is what's selected for step sequencing. So I'm just going to plug in some 8th notes. Now I can do real-time recording on top of that. And then when I stop, it just keeps looping. I can quantize that material that I just recorded. Let's say I don't want 100% quantization. I'll dial this down to 75% or so. I press it again, and now the material that I did in real time is snapped partway to the grid. And of course, the things I did in the step sequencer are always right on the grid. So step sequencing and real-time recording at the same time. We also have a note repeat mode. So I enable repeat, and then I set the duration of the repeat using this column of buttons here. So any pad that I'm holding down will now be repeated at whatever rate is set here. And these are pressure-sensitive pads. So as I lean in, it gets louder. I'll leave this at 16ths. And let me turn on some real-time swing. So we have a dedicated encoder here for swing amount. Turn this way up. And then maybe something more musical down here. And then I'll punch this in. Sounds great with that band. So now I did real-time recording, step sequencing, and note repeat recording, all at the same time on the same pad grid. So now, to switch to a pitched instrument, I just move over to a track where I have a piano sound loaded. And now the pads are designed to play notes. You turn off the repeat mode. So now I'm playing notes. And the way the notes mode works, there's sort of two fundamental ways that we interact with pitches when we're playing instruments. If I push this scales button, I don't know how much you can see on the display. Currently we're in what we call an in-key mode. So every note on the pad grid is in the scale that we're currently in. You can change the scale using these 12 green buttons here, change the key center, and then we can choose from one of 29 different scale types using these two yellow buttons here. Major, minor, all of the diatonic modes, and then a bunch of non-Western scales as well. Now if I switch to chromatic mode, you can think of this now as giving you the full array of chromatic modes folded onto this pad grid. So now I move to the right in half steps, I move up in perfect fourths. So I can play fully chromatic melodies using this pad layout. I'll play the melody to giant steps, for example. So I had to learn that on this instrument, just like I would have to learn it on any instrument, like a piano. But what you don't have to learn, because this is a symmetrical pad layout without weird, oddly shaped keys that stick up in strange places, is transposition. To transpose that melody that I just played to a new key, I just have to shift my hand. So in a way, it's like a layout that's similar to a piano, but also somewhat similar to a guitar, where you can think positionally. You find a fingering for a particular position and then shift to a new place on the neck. Here, if I want to play that melody a whole step higher, I just have to move over 2 half steps and play the same fingering pattern. So transposition in this pad layout is really interesting. Now if I switch back to the in-key mode that you saw at the very beginning, now we have no wrong notes. Every note on the grid is in the key. So if I move to the right in a row, I'm playing a scale. If I move up, now I'm moving in diatonic fourths. So a faster way to play a scale is 3 to the right, 1 up. And if I want to play a different scale, I can switch to a different key, say E, Lydian. It's the same fingering. I'll switch back to C major. So again, as with the chromatic mode, when you find a position for your hands, you shift that position around on the pad grid and you can play the same material in a different place. So triads are just this fingering, but now it's every triad. Every diatonic triad has the same shape. What else is interesting about this is non-triadic music. If I want to play in fourths, for example, like jazz voicings, because we build up the columns in fourths, it's very easy for me to play kind of pseudo McCoy Tyner. I can pretend that I know what I'm doing, and you're all fooled. But what I love about this is, you know, I can get around on a piano. I'm not a great pianist, but I can get around. But when I sit at a piano now to make new music, or a MIDI keyboard, for example, my hands fall into familiar positions. On Push, it's a completely new way of thinking about playing melodies and harmonies. So my hands are finding new positions, and the more I play this, the better I get at it. So I'm learning a new instrument here. And everybody that we've talked to that's gotten a hold of these has said, wow, I'm finding harmony in a new way. So, as far as I know, no one has done this kind of pad layout for notes before, and it's a really interesting way of challenging yourself if you're comfortable on an instrument. And if you're not already playing an instrument, it's a great way to get into playing melody and harmony in an interesting way. So teaching yourself music theory as you go. So we've seen beats, we've seen playing melodies and harmonies. Now I'm going to get a new sound. So I'm going to switch to our browse mode. And now the encoders and the display allow me to scroll between different types of sounds and select a new sound. So when I find a sound I want, I can load it with this green button, and now I have a synthesizer sound here. I'll switch back to our device mode and I can tweak the parameters of that sound using the encoders. So you notice these are touch encoders also. They show the value for the particular parameter that's selected, but when I touch the top of them, I can also see the scaling as a bar graph from 0 to 100%. So if I want to record that, let's say I know, for example, that I want to record 2-bar patterns because my drum pattern was 2 bars long. I press and hold this fixed length button and say, select 2 bars, and then enable fixed length mode, and now everything I record will be always 2 bars long. I don't have to worry about punching out at the right time. There's just one play button and one record button, and everything you do is captured. So I'll start the drum pattern by pressing play again, and then punch in when I want to record. Punch out, maybe quantize that. And now maybe I want to overdub some parameter changes as automation. I'll start recording again. And punch out when I'm done. And now I'll move to a different track that has a bass sound on it. And record that when I'm ready. So I punched in recording and it just keeps looping for me. Quantize that. And I could also record some parameter automation on top of that. So I can keep building patterns this way. So now I'm going to switch out of this notes mode where we've been playing the whole time and into session mode. And in session mode, you can think of this as zooming out, right? Every pad so far has controlled a single note, and now the pads are zoomed out and are launching the individual loops themselves. So I can start and stop clips by pressing these pads that have material on them, or I can launch a whole scene of clips. Oh, you guys are all here, hello. Cycling 74, ladies and gentlemen, hello. So I can launch a whole scene of clips by pressing these scene launch buttons on the side. Now at this point, I can also move over to the APC40, which was designed from the beginning for this kind of clip launching behavior, and fire scenes that I have pre-recorded already, and now I can also mix using these faders. So another nice thing about the APC40, we have a crossfader. So I have 2 tracks of drums here that are mapped in Ableton Live to 2 different tracks and 2 different sides of the crossfader, and I can move between them using these. And everything that I do on either of these pieces of hardware is reflected automatically in Ableton Live. So we can switch for a second to the laptop. Oh man, I have to start my computer up again. There we go. So what we love about playing Ableton Push is that you don't have to think about a computer. You don't have to get distracted by your email popping up or something. All of the creation phase of making a new piece of music is done from here. When you're done making new material by playing this instrument, you move over to the laptop and you find that 3/4 of the work is already done for you. You don't have to export things into your DAW. Live is your DAW. It's already got all of this material that you've made. So the workflow that we imagine is you start with Ableton Push, play, record, capture everything that you do with just a handful of buttons, move over to Live to do the kind of detailed editing that's really well done in Live, and then finally move to Live's arrangement view where you can capture all of that stuff into a timeline, into a finished song. You can use the APC40 and its faders and controls to do mixing, and you can use both of these at the same time to do really interesting things. So for example, I can lock one set of encoders here to a particular device in Live, so that its knobs are always controlling that device. And as you saw before, when I was moving between tracks, the encoders and all of the behavior of this stuff is dynamic. It updates depending on what's selected. So if I start playback again, I've now locked an auto filter on the master track to this set of knobs. And at the same time, I can move around using push. Control parameters on the selected device. So I have 2 devices mapped to 2 different controllers. So I can use 2 hands to affect 2 different things in Live, one of which changes depending on what's selected, and one of which is locked into place. So using both of these pieces of hardware together allows me to move from creation to performance seamlessly at the same time, and then when I want to finish the music, it's all there in Ableton Live. So that's a quick look at using Ableton Push, our new hardware instrument, using the Akai APC40, our last generation controller for launching clips in Live, and a look at Ableton Live 9, which is the brains behind all of this stuff. Thank you very much. I'll stick around and answer any questions if anybody has anything. It's live.